What was 15?
15 was a piece of plastic.
15 was over there.
Yeah, on the other side. It's kind of in the bush.
Amazon, you don't have to get an actual kit if you don't want. See what's in a kit? You can get, Mufon has kits. You can also just get stuff. Go to Home Depot, go to Walmart, and get the little vials. Get little tweezers for 50 cents. Dollar store if you want that. Mufon, yeah, would be great, but you can also make your own kit. I have a little tackle box, a fishing tackle box for my DNA kit that I have in my patrol car. So you get just stuff like that.
Thanks. Well, here's what I'm going to suggest thanks, Russ. Here's what I'm going to suggest is that get a hold, send an email to Doug Wilson and tell him that you've just finished with the boot camp and you're serious about this business, and what does he recommend? Mike.
Over, and everybody was sitting on the side over here, and I was going, wow, that's kind of a weird place to take a break. And as I stepped over the log, I heard this hiss, and I looked under the log, and there was a curled up rattlesnake under there, and everybody was busting up, and then I ran over there and sat down with him and waited for the next guy to come by. So then you talk to interview everybody afterwards. Now remember, interview is speaking to people in an attempt to get to the truth. Unlike an interrogation is you're interviewing people who have reasons to lie or make misleading statements to you. So what you're conducting is an interview. If possible, first before you do anything else. Always make sure you use a ruler or something that can be scaled within your photograph, so you can actually, and a ruler is great. I mean, you can get wooden rulers that are giveaways, you know, or little plastic ones. Take something that you have a scale, whether it's centimeters, millimeters, you know, whatever, just so that when they blow it up, it can be reproduced and measured correctly. I got a sharp groove, so. So Stan went up there, and the guy showed him where he was located at. So he went to the exact same place. He set up his computer. He set up a compass on basically a transit. Set up a compass that had a tripod mount. He got his computer out and brought up his GPS mapping. And then he shot an azimuth, and he says, okay, it's going that way. And they waited. Sure enough, at a certain time, it was getting dark, and all these lights appeared on the horizon, and they were flashing off and on. And the guy was excited, and see, there's the UFOs. Stan looked at his map, looked at the azimuth, and discovered that what this guy was seeing was a temperature inversion during the summer. And film doesn't do that. You can keep blowing it up, and it'll actually maintain a lot of its clarity. Use a clean, blank formatted memory card if you're using digital photography. Don't take a card that you've already got family pictures on, you've got selfies.
Is that right?
Sometimes.
What can we obtain kits at?
Investigator kits? Well, Mufon sells them. You can actually, there you go.
They said, we don't have jurisdiction on the reservation. The county was called. They said, we don't have jurisdiction. The Navajo police was called and said, well, we only got 2 officers on duty right now, so we can't come out there. They called the fire department. The fire department responded. about a half-mile away and saw a glowing object circling around that little community of houses. Turned around and went back. So, which is real unusual in itself for firemen, because firemen love to run toward the flames, just like moths. Nobody from the police department would even talk to him. And we know those officers over there. So that's really unusual for them just to shun him. Nobody in the fire department would talk to him. Nobody anywhere wanted to talk to him. So obviously they were threatened and told to keep their mouth shut. We kind of suspect that it might have been one of Bigelow's guys that went over there to pick up the entity. So again, in your focus, that the Navajos came through portals from other dimensions into this reality, because they talk about coming from different worlds through a hole coming into a different world, and now they're in what they call the shining world. Interestingly enough, we ask Navajos repeatedly when they report UFOs, have you ever thought about doing a CMS report to Mufon? Consistently, they tell us, no, we do not want to make a report to Mufon. Why? Because then everybody will come up here and the UFOs will go away. One gal talked to me and she says she went out in Cameron area to see her grandmother. She's sitting in the Hogan. Hogan's got a dirt floor. The door is wide open, so it lets the air in. As they're in there, the grandmother's weaving, sitting on the floor. The granddaughter is sitting there. She's visiting, drove out there. And she looks out. There's a shadow comes to the door and blocks out the light. And she looks out and she says, there's about a maybe 5 or 6 foot disc just hovering right by the door. And she grabs her grandmother and says, Grandma, look, there's a UFO, there's a flying saucer. And the grandmother didn't even look at it. She goes, they're always around here. It was no big deal to her. So, we run into cases like that all the time, where people see things and they just, oh yeah, that's just normal. We see it all the time. I was telling Stan he could write a bestseller just going around the reservation and collecting all these stories and writing them down, even though they're just stories at this point. So we're talking 27,000 miles of land on the Navajo. If you go, if you go, the producer of that TV show, when he was told that the old man didn't want to talk to him, said, well, that's okay, we saw the CMS report when it first came out, and we're going to go talk to him anyway. Not ethical, huh? Mufon called us and says, oh my God, they're going to go out there anyway and talk to the old man. And we said, yeah, let them. We didn't tell anybody that we had put the location 100 miles away from where it actually occurred. And so we can actually have in our minds that this film crew went out there and is searching 100 miles of territory looking for one old man, and it's just, we had a chuckle about it and then we had to get back to work. So we're talking 27,000 miles of land on the Navajo. If you go, that the Navajos came through portals from other dimensions into this reality, because they talk about coming from different worlds through a hole coming into a different world, and now they're in what they call the shining world. Interestingly enough, we ask Navajos repeatedly when they report UFOs, have you ever thought about doing a CMS report to Mufon. Consistently, they tell us, no, we do not want to make a report to Mufon. Why? Because then everybody will come up here and the UFOs will go away. One gal talked to me and she says she went out in Cameron area to see her grandmother. She's sitting in the Hogan. Hogan's got a dirt floor. The door is wide open, so it lets the air in. As they're in there, the grandmother's weaving, sitting on the floor. The granddaughter is sitting there. She's visiting, drove out there. And she looks out. There's a shadow comes to the door and blocks out the light. And she looks out and she says, there's about a maybe 5 or 6 foot disc just hovering right by the door. And she grabs her grandmother and says, Grandma, look, there's a UFO, there's a flying saucer. And the grandmother didn't even look at it. She goes, they're always around here. It was no big deal to her. So, we run into cases like that all the time where people see things and they just, oh yeah, that's just normal. We see it all the time. I was telling Stan he could write a bestseller just going around the reservation and collecting all these stories and writing them down, even though they're just stories at this point.
Well, they
Meth reader, it would probably be telling us. You got one?
In this, I do have a few questions for you regarding your sighting. Okay, fantastic. So, when you were at Needle Vista, when you had that sighting, was that correct? You were at Needle Vista when you had the sighting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. There's no reason, if he's telling the truth, there's no reason. Again, it's very hard to see because this would be in a chair. He's shifting. Why do you some people do, but it's like, why are you shifting? You ask the question, tell me about your sighting, when they're like this? No, they're holding everything in. They're not going to be open. They're over here, sorry. They're not going to be open with their story. You're going to start asking them questions. They're not going to free flow the information to you when they act like that. Now,
see this bright star here. This is Capella, right? We're going to see a lot of these things, and this is the Milky Way, right? You live in a galaxy that has spiral arms. So these spiral arms are actually, as they're swirling around, we live in one of those. We live in something called the Orion Spur. That's why Orion is so bright to us. We happen to be right near most of those stars. And when you're actually looking at Orion, we're not looking at Sagittarius, which is near the center of our galaxy. I was in the master's program, and I was coming out of the building. It was raining like crazy. I'm thinking, I don't want to walk to my car. And I'm looking down at the ground, trying to cover up, and I see a green light starting to move across the ground. I look up. Through the clouds, through the rain clouds, I see a meteor going horizon to horizon above the rain clouds, bright green. So it didn't make any sound. I'm adding that for whoa. And then it was gone. And I'm like, that's Sky Guy. Okay? If you have a phone, take pictures of the screen, man. Okay? So Sky Guy. Go sat watch. For those of you that want to see all those thousands of satellites over your head at any one time, you can actually use Go Sat Watch to show you exactly where they are in the sky, and it gives you a sky view. Helium, that's all they do. They're little percolators, little factories, they make helium. Okay? Our star is one of those. But it's going to run out of hydrogen to make it into the helium someday, and when it does run out, then it becomes one of these stars. One of these giant stars. They swell. So that said, we see these stars all over the universe, all different kinds.
It lights up in the daytime.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Think about how of course, it's hundreds of feet across. The mission was to shoot an enemy satellite out of the sky with a nuke. They did. You launched from an atoll in the Pacific, and they cleared 1,600 miles of area around. What happened? Oh, I think my computer went on pause. That's my computer saying, you're talking too long. Yeah. So they basically said that he said basically that he had just given up his clearance. And to me, that's like saying, wow, well, I know exactly where my thing went. You know, when you have a clearance, you are honor bound, you know. You're honor bound to report these things, whether they have anything to do with national security or not. If there's even the slightest potential, you write it, you sign a contract saying you will report everything you see. People are not supposed to have no disposition. They're supposed to be able to give a disposition to every single thing they see. This kid had no clue. He's like, he was stuttering. I don't know. What do I do? And the XO said, okay, son, it's all right. Log it and dog it. Those were his exact words. And Mr. Big Shot, you know, I was invited to be in the sub as a guest. I'm a big shot. I walk over to the XO, well, wait a minute, XO. I know what these fast movers are. Can I help you? And he said, Mr. D'Antonio, you having a good trip so far? Yes, sir, I am. Let's keep it that way. It's showing you all the areas of the night sky that are bright and dark. Dark is purple, light is purple.
Going to be very often, but you're going to have them. You've got to look at the person's body language. How, when you walk in there, I'm going to kind of come over here and talk a little bit, and they're just sitting here like this, or they're sitting in a chair, and they've got their feet crossed. I apologize for people in the back that can't see, but they've got their feet crossed. They're down like this.
Authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life, because that is not a plan.
It's barely a concept.
You're taking their side? I am Groot. So what? Spend a little 80%. What the hell does that have to do with anything? Thank you, Groot. Thank you. See? Groot's the only one of you who has a clue.
Kimball, and they do Obama and Bill Clinton.
The censor